What's up everybody and welcome back to the channel. In this video for the First Descendant today, we're going to be looking at a very specific build for Valby. See, every week on Tuesday, I release a reactor hunt video for the First Descendant, which shows the best spots that week to farm for specific configurations of reactors. Now, oftentimes in this video, I refer to going to outposts and farming them with Valby, since you can do this in a very specific way where you make sure that her third ability deals just enough damage, and you basically circle the ring of the outpost, killing all the enemies that spawn, but not killing the boss. This gives you 2 minutes and like 32 seconds of looting that you can do from these enemies, and it usually results in a massive amount of reactors that you can essentially find, and hopefully sometimes these reactors turn into ones that you can actually use on whichever character you're looking for in that particular week. I'll show you the building blocks of the build. This works for normal Valby as well as ultimate Valby, and I'll explain some things that you can add onto it that can make it even better, and basically I'll show you how it all fits together. So first things first, the star of the build is of course her third ability called Cleanup. This is a similar-ish skill to what we have in Bunny's third, but this leaves a trail of water behind, and anything that steps on it essentially takes damage and then eventually dies. Now our objective is to empower our Valby just enough so that whatever spawns dies immediately on this water, and basically also at the same time we don't want the water to be that lethal that if the boss accidentally wanders onto it, they immediately or almost immediately die without giving you the opportunity of resetting them or kind of like getting them out of the water. So putting this together is actually super simple, and it basically only revolves around 5 mods. The first thing you want to do is always, especially if you're using this to also level up Valby, you do want to give yourself some survivability. The point is you're going to be going in a circle the entire time. You're going to be taking some damage, and as always you don't want to be dying, because if you die then that's just going to, you know, slow down your gains, and you're not going to be picking up as many reactors because you're not killing as many enemies because you're lying down on the ground in the water. So increased HP is a good one to go. The next thing we want to do is, you can see that Cleanup has a stack cooldown because you have 2 of these that stack up, right? And it's 22 seconds. Now you can already see I have some cooldown reduction there, but that's coming from my reactor, so don't pay too much attention to that right now. The basic point here is you have 22 seconds on a stack cooldown, and then basically your water, where you can see, lasts for 15 seconds. Those are the 2 most important things. You want the water to last for as long as possible, because as long as the water lasts, they are taking damage, but you also want your stacks to come back fast as well. What liquefied means is that is the state that you're in when you basically, you know, you can move through enemies. Now this you can see is far lower at 5 seconds, and we are going to also increase that, but the bottom line is you want the water lying on the ground to be there the longest, because that's what's actually dealing the damage. And even if you have to run a little bit and you don't have your ability where you actually go through enemies available, it's fine, because the enemies are going to die, so they won't necessarily be blocking you, which can be a very irritating thing in this build if you don't deal enough damage, because as you're running around you can bump into enemies that spawn, and that slows you down, plus it fucking sucks. So yeah. Okay, so then what we're gonna do to drop our cooldown drastically is we use a mod called Noble Fingers, this guy over here. Okay, so we'll put that there. I'm very particular about where my mods go. And then this is gonna drop our skill cooldown, so now we're already from a 22 second down to a 14.8 second on this. The next thing we want to do is we want to increase the duration, right? So a good mod for that is a blue mod called Skill Extension, this one over here, right? So now we can see that we now have almost a 15-second stack cooldown, and we have a duration of 22 seconds. So our duration is now officially longer than our cooldown, which is really good. That's a great place for us to be at. Now we need to add 1 damage mod, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more just now, because if you are wearing a different set of external components than me, and if you are having a different reactor than me, you're going to add a 2nd damage mod. But for now, we're going to look at my configuration, and then I'll give you some tips and pointers on how to tweak it if you don't have the exact cookie cutter setup like I have. So a good mod for us here is something called Focus on Non-Attribute. Her damage type is non-attribute. And of course the skill that we're using is Dimension, but we're going to take Focus on Non-Attribute. This does 2 things for us. First of all, it gives us additional power, and secondly it gives us a little bit of additional cooldown as well, which is really nice. And then last but not least, we're going to add something called MP Conversion. MP Conversion, if I couldn't just get it right to spell it over here, is going to give us another massive amount of skill cooldown, and it's actually going to give us a reduction in our max MP as well, so we do get a slight penalty there. Now, once we slap this in, we're going to see now our cooldown's all the way down to 5.5 seconds, which means that stack is up every time, long before it eventually runs out. And you can see that your liquefied state is now 7.3 seconds, your waterway lasts for 22 seconds, and then laundry, which is the debuff that basically comes from them standing in water, lasts for almost a whopping 30 seconds. So this is the basic outline of the build. And this is what you've been seeing in the background with any of the footage that you've seen me dumping enemies. Is this is it. And you can see that this deals enough damage to kill the enemies in one tap, and that's anywhere between 50 to about 80k per hit. So it deals enough damage to deal that, but at the same time, it doesn't deal enough to actually do significant damage to the boss. And if the boss wanders into the water, it gives you enough time to shoot the boss and pull him out of the water, or you can always use laundry bomb and essentially just pull the boss out forcibly by the bomb exactly sucking him in, which is one of the effects that laundry bomb basically does. Now, let's say for argument's sake, you don't have ultimate Valby, you just have normal Valby, you haven't used any energy catalyst, and you haven't used any energy activators. This is the exact same build on normal Valby with the default 2 catalyst spots, which you get with every character automatically there for you. So you can see that I haven't used anything to increase the character in any way. I haven't used any catalyst, I haven't used any energy activators, and the build works just fine. So this is not necessary for you to go pick up ultimate Valby or anything like that, and you literally don't even have to spend anything to upgrade. You're basically ready to go out the box. Now on my Valby, I have a decent reactor, which allows me to get a massive amount of additional skill power out. That's why I only use 1 damage mod, and I have skill cooldown and skill duration up on this reactor, which is very good for me as well. So I would highly recommend that if that's the only thing that you want to currently use Valby for, is just to do these farms. This is a phenomenal reactor to use. Now you'll also notice that I'm using the Slayer set on here, and I have the 4-piece bonus, which gives me even more skill power. So what I'm saying to you is, if let these two be the variables that lets you make the following decision. If you are using a purple reactor, or if you don't have Slayer, or if you are using a purple reactor and you don't have Slayer, then my advice to you is the following: to add 1 more additional damage mod, and that would be something like this. Focus on dimension, and we can put that right over there. And that is going to then give you enough damage. If I run this configuration, I deal too much damage, and it basically does too much to the boss. So oftentimes, if the boss accidentally wanders into the water, then basically they die. So in my case, I'll just use the 1 damage mod. But if you don't have the same reactor as me, you guys get what I'm saying. All right. Now, there are some more quality of life mods that we can basically put in here if you just want it to be like super comfortable. So I can advise you to use something like, let's say, MP Accelerant, and that's of course if you have a fully developed Valby. So MP Accelerant is going to give you some more skill duration, and it's going to give you some of that max MP back. Now you'll see the duration starts getting like super wacky. It's like around for like basically forever, and you will essentially lap your own water ring like 3 times. You can also add in something like Battle of Stamina, which gives you even more skill duration at 8.8%, but also some additional survivability, which is quite nice. And then one other one, which I can also advise, would be something like HP Collector, because if you put HP Collector in here, then what that's going to do is it's going to make that you pretty much will never ever face any chance of dying, because enemies are taking pot shots at you every once in a while if they for some reason don't die to your water or something like that. So you can take some damage. And of course you have to remember that the boss has like free reign on you, and some of these bosses have like beam attacks and stuff like that actually deal a fair amount of damage. So this can help you basically tank that damage and never have an issue of having to run around and look for a red brick. Alternatively, let's say for example you're struggling with MP, right? Then you can just replace HP Collector with MP Collector. They both use exactly the same slot, which is a Xantic slot, and that will then solve any kind of MP problems that you have. But with this build, the only thing that you're using cleanup. And these enemies that die also drop blue bricks, so you'll be picking up more than enough mana that this is never an issue for me, which is why I run HP Collector by default. But I just mention it just in case it might be a problem. Now, one last thing before I let you go is that I would only advise you to actually do this Valby method farm on 5 different outposts. There are a ton more outposts in the game, 21 to be exact, but I've only found that this method is really viable to do on 5 of the outposts. I've of course spent time testing all of them. Now, the reason why some aren't viable is because the layout is fucking terrible, so you keep bumping into stuff, so you can't really like kite nicely. The boss might be a melee boss, which is fucking terrible. The spawns on some of these are broken, so if you kill the initial enemies, then no more spawn, or like 1 or 2 in the duration of like maybe 2 minutes or something like that, which means that you can't do the farm because there's nothing to fucking kill. And so some of these are just terrible, but by default, these 5 are the ones where I usually advise people whenever there's a reactor in this area. These are the 5 that I suggest. So that's Sterile Land Repository, Agna Desert Mirage Stone, Agna Desert Vermilion Waste, Fortress, Defense Line, Fortress Converter Facility. Those of you that are more visual orientated, let me show you the 5 outposts if you don't want to just follow the Excel. So the first place one, the one which I think is the best overall, is this outpost over here. So this is the Vermilion Waste one. Then the second one is on the same map, still on Agna Desert. It's this one over here. So this is the Mirage Stone one. Then our third one would be, let me think quickly. Third one is Fortress Converter Facility, right? So Fortress Converter Facility is this one over here. And then the OG, you know, Valby farm, the one that basically started this all near the start of the game, was this one over here. So this one you can still do. The, you know, it's just been gutted basically to death, so you're not getting great XP, weapon proficiency and stuff like that, and there's also less enemies, so it's not as lucrative as the other ones. And then of course we have one last one, which is in Sterile Land. Let me go there quickly. So boom, and then it would be Rockfall. So it's this one over here. So this one is, oh no, wait, I'm talking complete shit. It's Repository, sorry. So it's Repository, it's this one over here. So basically if you spawn down here, this is where you also have the special ops, right? Where you have all the different pools and all that stuff. So this one over here, you can do this one. It basically has a bunch of assets and stuff lying around. The boss is also kind of annoying, but it does work. You can kite it. It's not as good as the other 3, the first 3 that I mentioned, the 2 Agna Desert ones and the Fortress, but it is doable. So these 5 are good to keep in mind whenever you have good reactors dropping in that area and you have a Valby that's kitted, because it's super comfortable, very easy to play, and hella lucrative. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, fucking cheers.